Hi, I don't normally get in front of a microphone, but I have some exciting news to share with you. My friend and collaborator Cal, who goes by the name Midnight, and I are releasing an EP today called Waiting by the Window. Over the last 4 to 5 months, we've been working on this album across the ocean. He's in the UK, I'm in the US, and have really enjoyed the process and had a lot to share about it. So I got him on a video call earlier today where we talk about some of the challenges and creative opportunities that came from collaborating remotely. If you enjoy this conversation that we're having and you want to give the EP a listen, it's on Spotify and Apple Music and all those as well. So thank you. You reached out to me originally. What were you thinking? What was that like for you?
So yeah, for everyone listening, this is what my fanning out moment. So I was a huge fan of Logan stuff. So I stumbled upon your ambient work. And I completely annoyed. I was like, this is amazing. This is exactly up my street. And I was listening a bunch, and I remember I was like commenting on a bunch of your videos and stuff. And then just the thought occurred to me is that I'll just give you a message on Instagram, and I want to make something super clear. I have messaged people on Instagram a bunch before, and they've like not replied. So very much the classic thing. And then you reached out like straight away, and you were like, I'd absolutely love to. And I sent you like a few songs I'd done and things like that. And I was like, this is amazing. If I could collaborate with anyone, like it'd be you. Like this is like so cool. And obviously, before at that point, we had no idea about how we were going to literally 5 months later down the line, we've got 5 songs that we are just like so proud of, and how the process would go. And I had no idea, but I had a feeling that I just really wanted to ask you and really wanted to give it a go. And like I said, I'm so glad I did, and I'm so proud of the music we've made. So it came from that really, and I'm just really happy I went for it as well. Because I think when you're like not even up and coming artist, but just an artist with just a few followers, just mainly just family and friends and stuff. It's really hard to make the leap and be confident enough to approach someone that you're a really big fan of. And I think what was so cool is I think we were definitely like fans of each other's stuff, and I think we heard each other's stuff very much like we can just tell that this project's going to be geared in a certain direction. I think we had those kind of initial conversations about what the record would look like and sound like. Yeah. And I think it just worked like that way, and I'm so happy I did.
Yeah, I mean, I agreed. When you originally reached out, I like listened to your Spotify and like listened to your music for all of like 1 or 2 songs. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. I absolutely want to collaborate.
Songs in, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I can see this happening. Yeah, you have and you've mentioned this before, but you use this like Euclidean and sequencing and granular sampling. You can make like really airy and unpredictable textures, and impart a lot of emotion with those textures too. You're really, really good at that. And I'm way more of a synth guy. I find sounds and textures and play notes that way. And I could just like instantly see like, oh, I see where these like ideas come together.
Yeah,
this could be sick.
And I think Awaken's the best example of that, because like we have obviously the original synth patch kind of that I made. I was using a lot of kind of choir textures and things like that. Again, so much of it was put through the Autochroma, so much was put through a bunch of different granular processing and pieces of software. But on that song, like the synth part comes in at the start of the song, and it's just so classic. It's just so you feel buried in the sound and in the synth layer that you've got kind of going over the top and stuff, and it sets the tone perfectly. And I think something that you do so exceptionally well is that really like you really feel that the sounds that you're creating, you're living in the sounds. And I felt that listening to Awaken. I think that's why we decided for it to be the first songs, because it feels exactly like that. It's like we've said about like names and things, like it feels like the synth is waking you up and getting the project started. And I think you do, and that's what's so interesting. You come from very much that sort of synth, going through the hardware, background, and just getting the sounds in that way. And me, and again you as well, but me very much coming from the granular sort of synthesis and texture work. And the so interesting about that is that like you'll put something through there, you'll change some of the buffers and the frequencies and things like that, and I do a bunch of reversing stuff as well. Before you know it, you've got a sound you really like, and you've got to record it then, because if you change one part of it, the whole sound is doing something completely different. So it's that working at the edge of your seat kind of thing, like gathering that sound quickly and stuff. And I think that's the way we kind of did it. I think it's really cool.
Totally. And one thing interesting, and I'd love to talk about this. You are in the UK, and I'm in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. So we're working on an 8-hour time difference. we work in totally different DAWs,
Mm.
so we kind of just send WAV files back together. I add a thing, you add a thing, and then at some point we call it done. What was that like for you? I don't, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, like something that I think was really really cool was like a particular moment where we were talking about sort of visualizers for the album and things like that. And we had finished and we decided kind of the name and everything like that. And what was really cool was like, I was like, oh, I'm going to sleep now. And then Logan was like, okay, I'll get on it. And I think that's so cool because obviously I was about to go to sleep. Logan's like probably like midday for you or something like that, or afternoons. You can just get straight to it. And I think that's so cool. And it was like this 24/7 kind of, you wake up and you check the Dropbox and you check our messages. And Logan's like, I've done this, like this amazing kind of patch. And we look in and getting so excited about it. And I think that is such an amazing way because obviously we can't be in the same room together. We can't be communicating face to face, you know. So it's got, but that adds to the extra of like mystery and like, I wonder what he's doing on it now and vice versa. And I think that was really cool. And yeah, I found the process, like obviously me working on sort of Logic and getting used to Logic and stuff, like the process was, again, it was kind of more exciting because it was like obviously like different doors, but it's like we had no idea. Each song was finished in kind of a different way. Like it might be like a certain file that we kind of clipped and then send over. It might be a specific part of a song that we really like and then send that over. So rather than sending over the entire projects each time, it was maybe just little ideas and stuff. And I think it added so much kind of creative freedom that I think was really cool. So I found it, yeah, like really fun and interesting. I wonder about yourself as well. Like, how did you find that whole process as well?
Yeah. Something that was interesting was while we were writing, like we would record and intentionally make space for each other. Like we would record ideas that had emptiness in them for the other person to fill, which was an interesting thing. I don't know. There's a record. It's called the Postal Service is the band.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're familiar.
I
So
have definitely heard. Yeah, definitely heard.
like 2002 or 3 is when the record came out, and there was a producer who was based in California, and the artist was based in Bellingham, which is in the same state that I'm located, like the singer. And this is 2002. This is the old days. They don't have the internet like we do now.
Yeah,
They would
100%. Yeah.
they recorded the whole album by mailing CDs back and forth to each other, and
Which is
doing the same
great as a
process we did.
concept. It's already like blowing my
Yeah,
head. It's just
yeah.
so, we have so easy now being able to send like wave files, whatever we want to do. Like, yeah, you're gone. Yeah.
Exactly. But that was like, and they released a whole album and released it, and was relatively successful for an album created totally like remotely. And I don't know, there's something about that process that seemed interesting to me, that you couldn't be in the room while the other person was doing their thing. And I think because of our time zone difference, and because I mean, obviously we have it so much easier with file sharing and with video calling. They didn't have that back then.
Yeah.
But you know, the fact that we're 8 hours apart time zone wise, it's like all the hours you're working, I'm not, and vice versa, which led to that same level of like,
Yeah,
all
I
right,
love
we just
that.
kind
I
of have to
love
let it
that.
sit and see what happens.
It was our way of unintentionally going old school about it and stuff.
Yep.
And I think that's so, yeah, I think that's like so interesting. And I think that like that would even, you'd potentially lend itself more to potentially like maybe sort of creative differences, or maybe like I said, like these sorts of things. But I think what was so interesting was we didn't really have any, like there were discussions about certain percussion elements and certain like whether we're going to keep them in and those sorts of things. But I think, you know, for the most part we just very much were like on our own wavelength. I think that comes from having a lot of confidence that like we both knew that we would see this project through and it would get to where it needed to be, you know, and giving it that space. Because I think that just comes from having done other projects before and stuff. But I think that was cool. We were always so confident. We always knew that it would be when it needs to be. We didn't need to speak about every single part. It was just, like I said, like maybe a couple of different like sound bites, like is this roughly kind of it, and with the style and stuff. And another thing that was really cool, and I know we'll talk about it later, was like I sent a bunch of like sort of more playful sort of synth parts, you know, that I had made and stuff like that. I used a lot of kind of the Yamaha CS80 and the ARP 2600V and the Matrix 12V were like kind of the three kind of main synth parts I used. And I would make a bunch of patches, send it over, and you would change the tone of it completely, which is so cool. Like you drop it down, you know, to sort of D major or something like that. You drop down the key signature and stuff, and it would change the whole mood of it. And I think that's what's so cool, is we were able to do so much of that, and you know, more bubbly sounds, and then kind of bring it back as well. So yeah.
Yeah. There was a couple pieces that you sent over that when I received them, I liked it, but it felt a little fast and it felt a little bright
Definitely,
for what
yes.
I could add to it. So what I did was I slowed them. So I made like a 1 minute 30 beat or wave file into like a 2 20-minute wave file, and let the pitch do whatever the pitch does. So when you slow something down and it pitches down at the same time, and so then that would change the character of it, and now I have some more space to play with to try and add some stuff on. Yeah, there's a couple songs we did that way that it's a process I've never done before, but I love doing it. One of my favorite things about sampling is very speed sampling. Back in the old days, they'd use big tape machines and they'd slow things down. Or like if you were a singer and you wanted to have more different voices, you would slow the tape down and harmonize with whatever you slowed it down to. And then when you sped it up, the voice would have a different timbre, your harmonies would. So
Incredible.
that's what they did in the old days. So that very speed sort of manipulation, I always found very inspiring and interesting. And to do it in this context was also cool.
I love that. And speaking of that as well, like, did you find that you got into kind of like new sort of musical techniques and production techniques as we were kind of making the record? Because obviously you come, like I said before, like from a synth background, and the way you build and create your own sounds is absolutely incredible. Something that I'm so excited to kind of learn from you from, and I'm so excited for that. But yeah, did you find that you kind of experimented with kind of like new techniques and things like that, or did you kind of just like what was kind of interesting creatively about this record, kind of from your contributions and from kind of the sounds that you kind of brought forwards kind of as well?
Yeah. Well, it happened over like a 5-month period. So the sorts of sounds and textures that I leaned towards evolved during that period. Like
Yeah, I
in
love
Awaken, for example, I have the Montreal Assembly Count to 5, which is a granular pedal, like granular synthesis pedal. And one thing I was experimenting with was it was like stepped pitch manipulation live in real time. So I would send synth audio into it. It would create these grains that would evolve, are delays, like 200 millisecond delays that are reversed, and it would feed back in on itself. So it would get really like crazy. Yeah, and then so I would manipulate the pitch that it was doing essentially the very speed thing with, and at the same time I have a sequencer going on the keyboard, and I'm manipulating the scale, the chord inversions of that with a knob at the same time. So you get these like really bubbly like sounds that sound beautiful, and that's that second half of Awaken. So and that's just one example. Like throughout the process, I was using different tools the whole time. I was experimenting. I was finding different interesting ideas. How about for yourself? Was there anything that like throughout the process you're like, oh my gosh, I just found this, I need to try adding this?
Yeah, like so I think a great example of that, and it comes into a question I think we'll talk about next as well, sort of favorite moments on the record. Like adore everything about like all of the songs. I'm so proud of what we've done, but I think An Ending was a really particular example of like, wow, like I'm so proud. Like that's just a really, really cool moment. I think coming in from the sort of textural route, like there's just so much going. I think what we've said before is about how much space we've given each other as well. So for example, on Melancholy Moon, we've got that kind of like bass synth layer and the percussion element, and obviously the pianos that kind of added in the sort of textural glockenspiel stuff as well with the reverbs. And there's a lot of space in that kind of, in that song and in lots of songs. But I think An Ending is really cool from an opposite perspective. There's so much going on. There's so much to listen to. And it came from so much kind of really cool, like resampling, lots of work with sort of, as we said before, sort of the auto chroma. And I think I used a bit of Output, Exhale by Output as well. Like I was just, anything that's going to create some really cool sounds going on, like I'm going to give it a go and kind of see what it's going to do and stuff. And it came from me kind of very much like I've always loved and wanted to experiment more on his record is using kind of like just voice and just interesting textures and blending it in. So in An Ending, we've got a little bit of that going on. So it's a bunch of like different things that I found that I put in there. And I think it adds to this kind of it's like a scene from a film. And I think it really does sound like An Ending. It just sounds like you're in the middle of just like a scene that's being like played in front of you. And I think it's so cool. There is so much to listen to on that. And I think it was just a moment of a really cool magic. I love that song. So I think from my perspective, musically, like really exploring the granular work, really exploring and embracing the randomness of sounds as well, and stuff. Whilst everything I've done before has been very, on the piano, what chord you're playing. You're playing the chord, whatever. It's very kind of calculated. But here, just really just letting everything just happen the way it needs to happen, which I think was so cool. So I think that, to be honest, and obviously went very much with the sort of synth fruit and stuff. So it was that really, and I think that's what's been really cool about this project is leaving it so much to kind of the way that the song needs to be made, as opposed to having a real vision for it beforehand.
Yeah. Well, an ending is. I remember you describing that. Explains a lot, because there was a lot in there. That was the one I slowed down a lot. I slowed it like way down to like half the speed, and now this like really bustling, busy energy. It almost felt like you're still in the middle of it, but it's all happening in slow mo around you. And then I add that synth layer just to like give it some like pad and texture and like some breathing, like swelling, I guess I should say. Yeah, that explains a lot. There was a lot, and I remember first hearing that, like, this sounds incredible. There's so much happening.
And I think that's what's so cool is I knew that something could be done here, and I agree. It was way too busy. I think busy is the way I described it to you originally. Like the original sort of stuff I was doing, like it was too busy, but I knew something. There was something about
magic.
It was, and you
magic.
knew it, and you came in, and you did, like I said, amazing synth part over the top, which gave it context and gave it like. So another thing that I think we've done really, really well throughout the project is I'll put an idea forward, you put an idea forward, and we can make it into a song. This was so many stuff that we maybe like couldn't kind of like get to before, or couldn't create into a whole kind of song before, and it's like we were able to do it through that and help each other to kind of give it that specific moment, rather than being just a sound or whatever, like really create a whole kind of song out. And I think that was so cool, and that was another example of like just adding a couple little bits to it, really brought it into its shell. And I think another example is the fourth song as well, Towards the Sun, which essentially was so cool as well, because again, that was that sort of sound was very, very similar, but you're just reversing it. I put the kind of the sound in and was messing around with a bunch of the buffers and things like that, and then just reversed it, and it was like, whoa, that just reversing it. And it, like we said before, we changed the keys, it just tiny little change like that, and there's something here, and it was just like so delicate. And I think a lot of the project as well is it's so delicate. I think it's so cool. There's a bunch of space in between all of the sounds and stuff, but it's very delicate. Like a pin drop could like damage it. It's just so. I love that, and I think that's so interesting about how this project has happened, really.
Big controversy. We have drums in one of the songs. Melancholy Moon has that percussion going on. You love the percussion. Something I always do when I'm doing something that's melodic.
Yes.
So that part, it has that. I mean, it's kind of like it's like halfway between an electric piano sound and a sine wave, and it's got that like. Anyway, I'm playing that melody. Bum, 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 bum.
And I was going to ask a lot more about that, so I'm so glad, because the percussive element for Melancholy Moon, I just absolutely love. Like, I just love it. It's just so... It's so rhythmic and pushes forward in that way. So, please explain like more about how you kind of created that and everything to do with that,
Yeah, so I always, whenever I'm trying to like write a melody, I always put some sort of, like I just make a quick loop of some percussive things. So that way you feel like you're like, I don't know. I feel like if you just have like a click going, then that feels robotic, and it's hard to approach the musical aspect, it's hard to get in the mood. It's hard to play the notes and feel the emotion if you're just hearing click, click, click. So I always try and make like a little percussive, something that has groove and feel and that you lean into, just while I'm writing the melodies. And then I usually take it out. So that way the melody has that motion, but the song doesn't have the percussion in the end of it. But you still have the emotion, and the feeling gets created easier when you're doing those melodies. I sent you with and without the percussion, and you're like, no, we got to keep the percussion on that song.
I think that's so interesting, because I was going to ask you about this. So, like you said, like very much having the percussion in as a creative tool to be able to build the song around it, but then take it out. And I think that is so interesting, because I came from just the fact of what am I like to hear and stuff, and it helped so much with the piano part. Obviously, the piano part was built the BPM, which was created from the percussive elements. But like, I just love that sound, and it is very it's monotonous in the best way. It's very repetitive, very whatever, but it's just so, I can't explain it. I can't explain this one. But I just loved it, and I think it's so interesting because like I said that you were like, this is how I've always done percussion. I came from a fact of, but actually, like, do we? Like, I really like that. I like that in there, and it keeps it moving at a very kind of continuous pace, which I just thought it worked really well. And obviously there was some other songs that we had percussive moments that we decided to take out as well. So I think that was like an interesting, like one of the moments where we had like different opinions and we were kind of discussing about it and stuff. But yeah, I think that's so interesting as a creative, because I think otherwise, like it sometimes it can be really easy without percussive elements to really get with your sort of tonal synth work and stuff and really be some kind of into that. But I just loved it. I loved it.
Well, I mean, that moment and the moments we talked about, there's so much more in these 5 songs that I'm excited for everybody to listen to. I think this is a good time is any time to wrap up. You can find this EP, if you've made it this far, you might as well listen to the record, honestly.
It's we like it.
It's pretty, we like it. And it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music. I think we're both going to be posting it on YouTube as well. So, is there any, this isn't going to be the last time we collaborate on things. Is there anything, last things you want to say about the record?
So finally, to wrap up, working with Logan has been such an incredible experience. And I'm so proud of these 5 songs. I'm proud of everything. And that's the final thing I was going to say was we have some more news coming soon about another project that we're working on. We're trying to figure, is it going to be an album? Is it an EP? And that's really exciting. So we're going to figure that out and we'll have more news soon. So it isn't the end of our collaborative work, but I think this is the perfect example of like, coming with a rough idea, finding someone you really gel well with, someone who sees things very similar to you, and then giving each other space to go off in your own spaces and own times and work on stuff and then bring it together and just know that it is going to come together the way it needs to happen. I think that is just, listen to the record before we started the interview, I just felt so much that. I felt that I had no idea where I was going, but I just knew that it was going to go somewhere interesting and unique. And I think we've learned a lot from this and can't wait for kind of the next record and everything kind of coming forwards as well. So my final thing would be just exactly, if you've listened to the interview so far, give the record a listen. We'd love to hear kind of your thoughts and stuff on it. And we're so excited for future collaboration work and stuff like that. So yeah.
This has just been an unreal experience, and I'm so proud of the work, and can't wait for you to listen. So Cal, thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Amazing, brilliant.